Hey guys, so today I'm going to go over a topic that I was personally very interested in what credit cards that give you lounge access. I spent a lot of time researching for this video, and I'm going to go over 14 credit cards that give you lounge access, and I'm going to rank them from best to worst. And things I take into consideration when I was ranking them was lounge access, like how many lounges you have access to, how many times. Some cards only give you 2 passes, some are unlimited. So I took that into consideration. Also, a huge factor is cost and other benefits that the card provides to let you recoup the cost of the annual fee. Some of these cards are $95 and some of them are up to $700. So there's a huge range, and some of those cards it's easier to get the money back that you pay for the annual fee, and other cards they make it a lot more difficult. So take that into consideration and how useful the points are. I personally prefer points that you can transfer to multiple partners and aren't locked into one hotel or airline, but everyone has their own personal preference. Depending on your lifestyle, what airline you use, how many times you travel, this ranking might be slightly different for each individual listening, but I think it'll give you a pretty good picture of what card will be useful for you, and I think this ranking will generally apply to most people. So I will not be going over each and every benefit of every card. It'll be more of a simple overview that has the multipliers and some of the benefits, the annual fee, the sign-up bonus, on a lot of the main stuff, but it won't go into the very fine detail of each card. Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to start off with what I think is one of the worst cards on here, which is the black card from Luxury Cards. It has an annual fee of $4.95, 1x on all purchases, and that's it. So it just has 1x on all purchases. You can redeem as 2x on airfare, so if you have 1 point, it counts as 2 points towards airfare, and then 1.5x on cashback. It does have a $100 airline credit and then a $100 global entry TSA pre-check credit. A lot of the cards on this list have the $100 global entry TSA pre-check credit, and I didn't write it down for each one of them, but most of them have one. So if you're interested in that card, take a look, and most likely, and if you're interested in that credit, most of them will have that. It does have some other smaller insurance and other smaller features that I don't think are super useful, but at the end of this day, I think this credit card is, I don't really see the benefit of it. I think it's supposed to be more of just a, hey look, I have the black card, and I don't know if you guys can see the picture, but I really don't even think that it looks that good. Okay, the next one, it's another luxury card. This is the gold card. It's almost $1,000 a year. You get 1x on all your purchases, 2x on, and then when you redeem your points, you get 2x on airfare and 2x on cashback. So it's very similar to the black card. This one is 24K gold plated, and it has a $200 airline credit, and it also has the $100 global entry and TSA pre-check. Other than it being gold plated and saying that it's the gold card, I really don't think this card is super useful for most people. I think it's supposed to be more of a flex, but really, I mean, I think you're just wasting money if you get this card. Okay, on to number 12. This is the Capital One Venture card. Not the Capital One Venture X, which will be later on in this list, and a lot of people have heard of the Venture X. They do a lot of ads. A lot of other people talk about that card. So this is the Venture. This one's only $95 a year. There is a 75K bonus if you spend 4K in 3 months. It also has 5X on hotels and rental cars, but through Cap One. It has 2X on all other purchases. One thing to note for Capital One Miles is that the miles to cashback ratio isn't always 1-to-1. So 1 point isn't always equal to 1 cent when you're redeeming as cashback. Sometimes it's half. So if you have 1,000 points, instead of it being $10, it might be $5. So this card allows you to have 2 visits to either the Capital One Lounge or a Priority Pass Lounge per year. So this card isn't super useful for people that travel a lot, because 2 visits can be used up just in one trip, and you and somebody that you're traveling with, or just 2 different, going to a trip and coming back, and then that's it. So this card's more geared for people that don't travel a lot. And I put it lower on the list because there's not a lot of lounge access, although it's cheap, and it's harder to get that $95 back. There aren't a lot of other benefits that allow you to recoup that cost. On to number 11, the next card I'm going to talk about is the Marriott Bonvoy Brilliant Amex card. This card's going to set you back $650 a year. There are a lot of credits and features that allow you to recoup that cost. That initial $650 is gonna sting for a lot of people. There's a bonus of 150,000 points after you spend 6K in the first 6 months, which is Pretty doable for most people, I would say. At least most people that would be applying for this card. It also gets you 6% back on all Marriott purchases. It also gets you 3x back at restaurants and flights booked directly with the airline. And then 2x on all other purchases. There's also a $300 dining credit, which can be used up to $25 per month. So you do have to use the credit every month versus just $300 meal in a couple, just using $300 in a month on a couple meals. There's also a lot of other awards like the Free Night Award and the Diamond Elite status. So there are a few other ways to recoup that money that you're spending on the annual fee, and this card could be super valuable for people that stay at Marriott a lot when they travel, and it gets you access to priority pass lounges. I definitely wouldn't get this card if you were just trying to get lounge access. There's a lot of other cards that are better, but for some people this card might fit. Okay, on to number 10, that is going to be the Hilton Honors Amex Aspire card. So this is another hotel card. This one has an annual fee of $450. Again, there's a bonus of 150,000 points if you spend 4K in the first 3 months. You do get 14x back if you have eligible Hilton purchases, and 7x back on flights booked directly through the airline or Amex, and also on rental cars booked directly through the car rental or Amex. And then you get 3x back on all other purchases. These multipliers sound really great, 7x, 14x, and they are, but also you have to take into account what is the value of each point. And a lot of people value Hilton points at 1 point being half a cent, whereas a lot of other credit cards, each point, for example, Chase or City points are considered, each point is 1 cent. So these points are about half the value of a lot of other cards. So even though it seems like you're getting a lot of value, you gotta be careful, you might not be. But even if you, but there are some people like Luke's Points and Miles that say that Hilton points are worth 1 cent if you redeem it a certain way. So really it depends on you, but I would say most people value Hilton points around half a cent. So 14x is more like a 7x, the 7x is more like a 3.5x, which is still great and you can still get a lot of value, but the multipliers might be trying to trick you mentally to sounding higher than they actually are. You do get a $250 airline credit and a $250 Hilton credit, which is really useful when you're trying to make that money back from your annual fee. You also get complimentary diamond status, and then you get access to priority pass lounges. So this credit card could really be great again for people that stay at Hilton a lot. All right, on to number 9. So this is our first airline card, and this is the United Club Infinite card. This is another card with a very high annual fee of $525. Now, not all the cards on this list are gonna have a high annual fee. I'm gonna go over some of the cards further on in the list that are much cheaper, because a lot of these cards do have a pretty high annual fee. The United Club Infinite card has an 80K sign-up bonus after spending 4K in the first 3 months. And then it has some decent multipliers. You get 4x on all United purchases, 2x on restaurant and travel purchases, and then 1x on all other purchases. And then it does have some features that aren't on here, but free checked-in bags and some other features. But the biggest feature of this card is it allows you to have United Club access, unlimited access, and also access to some of the other Star Alliance lounges, which could be super useful to people, especially people that fly United a lot, and especially the New York area or other United hubs. This card could be super useful for those people, or maybe not as useful to people who don't have a lot of United flights in their area. Okay, so number 8 is another airline card, and depending on which hub you're near, for example, for American, if you're near Dallas or Chicago, this card definitely could be more useful. If you're near New York, then maybe the United card is more useful. This card does have a lower annual fee than the United Club Infinite card. This also has a much bigger name. This is the Citi AA Advantage Executive World Elite card. I always forget that, it's a pretty long name. This has a short-term offer of 100K miles after spending 10,000 in the first 3 months. This might not be useful for everyone. $10,000 is a lot, and maybe if you don't have any big purchases coming up, that bonus might be harder to get. Historically, it usually has a 50,000 point bonus after spending 5.5 thousand in the first, which may be more achievable, but also, you get less miles. So you can either, if you wanted to get this card, you can either hurry up and get the sign-up bonus, or you can just wait a few weeks and wait for the historical offer to come back, depending on which one works better for you. With this card, you do get 10x on eligible hotels and car rentals booked straight through American Airlines, which could be great, but I also feel like it really constricts you if you have to go through American Airlines. And I haven't really used their portal. If someone has, maybe they can leave a comment below and let us know what they think about American Airlines portal. But for me, that's very constrictive, even though 10x sounds pretty great. You also get 4x on American Airlines purchases, and then you get 1x on all other purchases. One of the great features of this card is you get free checked bags for you and up to 8 companions, which could be very useful for, if you're traveling with a large family, to have everyone get their bags checked in for free. And the biggest feature of this card is you get American Airlines Admiral Club access, which is usually $650 if you were just to straight up buy the membership. And since the card is $450, you're saving money already if you wanted to get access to the Admirals Club, if that's something you're thinking about. But let's go on to number 7, which is another airlines card. Number 7 is the Delta SkyMiles Reserve Amex card, which is another expensive card. Will set you back $550 per year. But there are a few ways to get some of that money back with this card. That's why I placed this card higher than the other 2 airline cards. Right now, this card has a $60K sign-up bonus after spending $5K in the first 6 months, which I think is doable for most people. Most people generally spend at least $1,000 a month. The multipliers on this card aren't great. You get 3x on Delta purchases and 1x on everything else, so that definitely isn't the main attraction of this card. But a nice feature on this card is that when you book flights using your miles through Delta to get the award tickets, they do give you a 15% bonus, which is pretty nice and something you wouldn't get with the American Express Platinum card. So these points become more valuable if you have the Delta Reserve card. And this next feature is what I think could really make this card worth it. This is the companion certificate. When you book your flight, your companion can fly for free. It's basically free. You still have to pay the fees and taxes. You also get access to Delta Sky Club lounges, which if you were to just buy the membership on its own would be $695. This card is $550, so you're saving some money there for Delta Sky. And another thing that I really liked about this card is that you get access to Centurion lounges if you book your flight through this card. So this gets you access to Delta Sky Clubs and Centurion lounges, so it gets you a little bit more access than the previous 2 cards. Okay, so now on to number 6, which is another airline card, the United Explorer card. So this card only has an annual fee of $95. This is sort of why I placed it higher than the other cards, because there's a lot of people that maybe don't travel a lot and might only need to go to the lounge when they travel 1 or 2 times a year. If you want lounge access, but it's not everything, might need to use it once or twice, then this card could be super useful. This card has a 60,000 point bonus if you spend 3,000 in the first 3 months. It gets you 2x back on United, restaurants, and certain hotels, and then 1x back on all other purchases. Nice feature of this card is you and somebody else get free checked bags. I think this is a great feature because checked bags with United usually cost $35 per person each way. So if that's 2 people, that's $70 right there, and then you include the trip coming back, $140. It's very easy if you fly United to recoup those $35 if you check in bags. So that's another reason I rank this card higher, is because it's easy to recoup the annual fee, and it's great for people that don't travel a lot. This card gets you 2 one-time passes to a United club every year. So not super useful if you travel a lot, but very useful for people who only do 1 or 2 trips a year. Number 5, we're going back to the hotels. This is the Hilton Honors Amex Surpass card. It only has an annual fee of $95. It has a sign-up bonus of $130K after spending $2K in the first 3 months. Again, the way the points are valued is different by a lot of people. A lot of people value this at half a cent per point. You get 12x on Hilton purchases. You get 6x back at restaurants, supermarkets, and gas stations, and then 3x on all other purchases. And then you get 10 visits to Priority Pass lounges every year. So one of the reasons I placed this card higher on the ranking is because for a lot of people, 10 visits is more than enough for 1 year. If they and a companion are traveling, or kids are traveling once or twice or 3 times a year, that can easily be enough. And then the other one is, even though the multipliers, the points might be worth less, these multipliers, even at 50 cents, since at a 6x, you can think of that as 3x back at supermarkets, gas stations, restaurants. I mean, that basically covers most of everyone's spend. So do you stay at Hilton a lot and you travel just a few times a year, this might actually be a really great card for you. And its annual fee is relatively low compared to a lot of other cards. Okay, so now we're getting in the top four. The top four, it's going to be all bank cards, no hotel or airline cards, because personally I think those are more useful for more people because they can be, you can transfer to multiple different partners, multiple different airlines, multiple different hotels based off the best deals you're getting at that point. Okay, so number 4 is going to be the US Bank Altitude Reserve card. This card has an annual fee of $400, but the effective annual fee ends up being $75 really easily, and I'll tell you why in a few minutes. It has a 50K sign-up bonus if you spend $4,500 in the first 90 days. You get 5x on hotels and car rentals booked directly through US Bank, 3x on eligible travel and mobile wallet spending. This is what makes the card really amazing. 3x on travel is pretty great because not a lot of cards offer you 3x just on any travel, which can be really useful because that includes multiple categories, not just, you know, flights or hotels booked directly through that company's portal. But what's really cool is the mobile wallet, which is Apple Pay or Google Pay. Basically, if you tap your phone somewhere, that's your mobile wallet, and you get 3x back. So if you were able to use your mobile wallet everywhere, you know, anywhere you go shopping, you would effectively be getting 3x back on everything, which I think is really, really great. And then you get 1x back on all other purchases. That 1x could actually be 1.5x because when you're redeeming your points for travel through the US Bank portal, each point is worth 1.5x more. 1 point is actually worth 1.5. So that $500 or 50,000 point bonus would actually be worth $750 if you booked travel through their portal, which is pretty nice. Okay, so now we're down to the top 3 cards. And the third one is the Capital One Venture X. And this is the card that I actually have. And I'll go over some of the reasons why I got this card. So it does have a 75,000 miles sign up bonus if you spend 4K in the first 3 months. It has some good multipliers, 10x for rental cars and hotels booked through the Capital One portal, 5x on flights booked through the Capital One portal. And I actually just used the 5x for a trip I'm going to be doing in this December, so excited about that. And then it's 2x on all other purchases. One of the reasons I love this card is you make your money back, the annual fee back. So you get a $300 annual travel credit every year. So if you book travel through the portal, say you book a $400 flight, they'll give you $300 back. So that flight will be $100. You'll pay $100 and they'll credit $300 back. And then also you get 10,000 miles every year after your first year. So if I got this card in May, you know, of 2023, then I would get those 10,000 miles in May 2024, so a year later. So effectively every year, and those 10,000 miles are worth $100 if you book travel using those miles. So effectively you're getting $400 every year, and the card costs $395. So effectively you're making $5 from having this card. And on top of that, you get access to Capital One lounges and Priority Pass lounges. So Capital One currently only has one lounge, and it's in DFW. And this kind of works out for me because DFW is the airport I primarily use. They are planning on opening 2 more lounges in the recent future. I think 1 in Dulles and 1 in Denver, if I'm not mistaken. This card works great for me because one of the lounges they have open is my home airport, and it's very easy to get your money back, your annual fee that you pay back, and you get access to the Priority Pass lounges. All right, on to number 2. That would be the Chase Sapphire Reserve card. So that card has a hefty fee of $550. There are some ways to make your money back. I would argue it's harder to make all your money back, and it's a little bit easy. It's a little bit easier with a Capital One card to make your money back. You can with the Chase, but it's a little bit more difficult. But it does have a sign-up bonus of 60,000 points after you spend 4K in the first 3 months. Now this might sound less than the Capital One, but actually all those miles, when you redeem them for travel through the Chase Sapphire Reserve, are 1.5x. So the 60,000 points, instead of being worth $600, if you multiply that by 1.5, they're actually gonna be worth $750. The travel multipliers are very similar between the two. You get 10x on hotels and rental cars booked through Chase, and then 5x on flights booked through Chase. And then there's 3x on all travel. And I think that's actually a really great multiplier because sometimes you don't want to be restricted by the portal, and you don't want to only book hotels that are in the portal or rental cars that are in the portal. This lets you book anywhere you want and also includes a lot of other travel than just hotels. So the 3x on travel can be really great for people that travel a lot. And then it has 1x on everything else. The Chase card does have a $300 travel credit, which is actually easier to use than the Capital One because they'll automatically apply the $300 travel credit when you just swipe your card. With the Capital One, you have to book something through their portal to get that $300. With the Chase Sapphire Reserve, you just swipe your card and they'll credit you the $300. So the fee effectively becomes $250. And there's a few other credits like Instacart and some other smaller Lyft credits and other smaller things that Chase does where you can get more money back, but those I feel like are a little bit more difficult. So when it comes to lounge access, their Priority Pass is better than all the other credit cards on this list because you also get restaurant credit. Most of the other credit cards are just for lounge access. With the Chase Sapphire Reserve, you get credit at a lot of restaurants. This can be very useful. I've learned as I've traveled throughout the US, there's a lot of terminals where they don't have lounges, but they have restaurants on Priority Pass. Like I was at SFO and I noticed that there was a couple of restaurants in the terminal I was in, but not really a lounge that I could access. So depending on which airport you use and what lounges or restaurants are available there, this could actually be very useful for some people. And Chase has started building out their own lounges. Right now they have one in Boston at the Logan International Airport, and they have a little kind of terrace in Austin. So they're building that out. I know they're going to grow out to a few more locations. It's still a small network like Capital One, so most people will just be using the Priority Pass. But I really think this could be a great card for a lot of people. And I had it at number 2 because not only does it give you lounge access, it also gives you Priority Pass restaurant access as well. So yeah, this could be a great card for a lot of people. All right, drum roll. On to number 1. Number 1 is, of course, the king of travel cards, the Amex Platinum card. It does come with a heavy fee of $695, so almost $700. But there are a lot of credits to get that money back. Some of those credits are more difficult because they're with very particular companies like Equinox. Not a lot of people use that Equinox gem, but there are other credits that are a little easier to get, and I'll go through some of them, but it will not be an extensive list because that Platinum card has a ton of credits. So if this is the card you're interested in, I would go deep and look into it. So the sign-up bonus for this card fluctuates depending on what browser you open or what time or if you're targeted or not, but it's anywhere from 80 to 125,000 points if you spend 6K in the first 6 months. There have been offers as high as 150,000 points for spending 6K in 6 months, so I would keep your eyes open. It does fluctuate, and I would read a little bit about that before I apply for this card, because that's a lot of points, and these points can be pretty valuable. As far as multipliers, there's not a lot going on. You get 5x on flights and hotels booked through Amex, or if the flights are booked directly through the airline, and then 1x on all other purchases. Example of some of the credits you do get: there's a $200 hotel credit, a $240 digital entertainment credit, which can be used on Disney Plus, Hulu, Peacock, certain streaming services like that. And like I said earlier, many other credits. Where this card really shines is lounge access, and this is a video about lounge access. So you have access to the Centurion Lounges, which is one of the more developed credit card lounge system. There are Centurion Lounges all over the US, so if you do a lot of domestic travel, it could be very useful. And you also have access to Priority Pass lounges, like the other cards, Escape Lounges, and you have access to Delta Sky Club lounges if you're flying Delta, and Lufthansa lounges if you're flying Lufthansa, and Airspace lounges. So there are a lot of lounges that this card gets you access to, which is why it's rated number 1 on my list. So let me know what you guys think about the rankings, if you agree or disagree, down in the comments. Obviously, I think this ranking isn't going to be the same for everyone because it really does depend on your individual situation, on how much you travel, how much you value lounge access versus cost. So there's a lot of factors in here, or what airlines and hotels you use. So that really varies individually, but I try to take a lot of that into consideration when I was ranking this. But hey, if you disagree, let me know why and what you think the rankings should be. So this did take me a while to comprise, so I would really appreciate it if you guys give me a thumbs up and subscribe. It really helps your boy out. Thank you.